radio TV phono nut here, and with what's been going on the last couple of days with Charlie Kirk getting assassinated in the state of this country, I just decided to get out here on my carport and start doing some straightening up. Things have really gotten out of control over here, and I was going to start purging some things and rearranging some things, and that's going to take more than a couple of days, but you got to start somewhere. But anyway, I've got this big Zenith System 3 25-inch console color TV from the early 80s, and this is one of those fancier sets with the built-in telephone and the hi-fi audio system. This was given to me at an estate sale probably a year and a half ago, and it's been sitting under my carport ever since. And unfortunately, the cabinet finish has gotten damaged since it's been here from water blowing in on it. The cabinet's not swollen up or anything, but it would need to be probably refinished at this point. But it's really no big thing because I don't think this one's going to live again anyhow. When I tried this out, the high voltage would come up for a second and then it would shut down. And that's most likely a problem with the infamous 9-160 module here. I think when I got this set, I did pull the module and resoldered some questionable connections, and that's about as far as I went with it. But today I decided, let's check the CRT and see if it's any good, because if it's no good, there's really no point in messing with the rest of it, at least not to any degree. Well, this is what we have here. Let's see. Gun balance. Red gun, no cutoff. Green gun, no cutoff. Blue gun, no cutoff. And our emission on the blue gun is way down in the red. Green gun, about as bad. And the red gun is really, yeah, I gotta wiggle that socket, it's a little loose. But yeah, the red gun is really bad. Now, I saw a lot of these System 3 sets whenever I was a teenager in the 90s. And Zenith started using this EFL gun trifocus inline tube in the late 70s with the Chromacolor, some of the Chromacolor 2 sets, and then they continued using them into the System 3 era. These tubes were not all that great. They weren't as bad as what came in the 90s, but these were nowhere near as durable as the Delta gun tubes that they used in the Chromacolor 2 sets. Now, the 13 and 17 and 19-inch versions weren't that bad. Those held up pretty good, but the 23 and 25-inch versions didn't seem to hold up that great, and they generally will not rejuvenate. Or at least I've never had very good luck rejuvenating one. Usually if it comes up at all, it might look better than what it did to start with, but it's not going to look great. And then after a while, it's going to fall back down and look worse than what it did to start with. So, if we can get a picture on this set, just for fun, we might see what it looks like as it is. And then we might, just for fun, try to rejuvenate it and see what happens. But for all intents and purposes, this set is likely going to become a project for someone's dog bed, or it's just going to get put out on the street. Anyway, as I was saying, I'll probably pull this 9-160 module and check the main filter cap. I want to say that there was a section of that would open and cause these sets to fire up and shut down, or I'll check a few other things, but obviously I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is more for entertainment purposes more than anything else. And I noticed as I was removing the module that the bottom of this cabinet, which is particle board, is all warped, which is not a good thing. Yeah, just pecking around with the ESR meter, our dual section filter cap is good, but this little capacitor up here is open. Alright, 15 microfarad, 25 volt, and as you can see on the meter, it is dead wide open. And there's the new one. I had to parallel a 10 and a 4.7 to get the desired value, and it's reading good ESR. Here's the front of the set, and you can tell this was a fancier TV in its day. And here's our space phone thing here. And then we open this up, and we have our keypad and our adjustments for bass and treble and all that. And as I recall, what would happen is this set would fire up with high voltage, and the high voltage would immediately shut down, but the audio would continue to buzz because, or hiss or whatever, because that gets its power from a separate source. So let's see what happens. Alright, we have high voltage, but is it staying up? Or did it shut down? Well, it's staying on. We got a raster. We got snow on the screen. So that capacitor was the problem. Let's get a converter box and see if we can get something on here.
Danielle Persolas, you inspired me to run my first marathon and to never give up on my dreams.
That picture looks like crap. Very washed out, very blown out.
Firefighter Michael T. Carroll.
Where's our where are our controls for picture controls and all that? Where'd they go hide the? Oh, they're right here, I guess.
My cousin, Michael J. Berkeley. This nation was united in unspeakable tragedy.
They had the picture control all the way up.
And may they prevail again, and not let hatred divide us.
Okay, wait a minute. Let's turn the chromatic switch off, or color synchrony, or whatever it is. That sharpness.
Let's never forget we pictured you tonight. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night. Thank you for making world news.
I don't think that cable's very good, but you can see how it blows out when I turn the picture control up.
You're probably paying too much.
Yeah, that tube is finished. It's getting darker right here, which means this will be a little better to see. And this does look better on camera than it does in real life, but whenever I turn the picture control up, you can see it just blows out there. Now, if I didn't have a TV and this was the only thing I could get, I'd be happy to get it, but this thing is about worn out.
From wrenches to storage solutions, diagnostic tools, and more. Built to last.
Now, as far as rejuvenating a tube, under no circumstances should that ever be considered a permanent fix. Yes, I understand you just can't run to the parts house and pick up a rebuilt tube anymore. And sometimes, in order to buy some time for your TV, rejuvenation is the only option there is, but it should no time ever be considered a permanent fix. Now, how long will it last? Depending on the tube, depending on the condition of the tube, depending on how good your equipment is, it could last anywhere from a few minutes to 6 months to a year. But there are a lot of variables involved there, but like I said, in no time should that ever be considered a permanent fix. That was just something that was meant for the serviceman to do to keep the customer quiet while they sourced a replacement picture tube, or the customer got the money together to buy a new set. Well, now our blue and green are very weak, and our red is reading nothing, and that might be the socket that's bad, because that socket's kind of flaky. Alright. auto restore. Now once again, I'm not looking for much to happen here. This is just for entertainment purposes. And we hold this down for 3 cycles. So we're on the blue gun. One. And 3. Now the green gun. Now let's see if the red gun does anything. No, it doesn't, because I don't think our socket is making contact. Let's see what the other 2 guns did. No cutoff on green. No cutoff on blue. Emission came up good, but no cutoff, and that's generally what these do. You can get the emission to come up, but you can't get the cutoff to come up properly. Well, I never could get that socket to cooperate, so the red is dead. Let's see what it does now. Why is this thing not going to channel 3? Alright, that's it. It looks a little better, but it's still not what it could be.
We planned a party. We had a...
I'm going to look at that socket tomorrow and see if I can figure out why that red is not working.
Whip reductor traps 4 times more dust.
But right now, that's about it. Okay, I finally got the socket to make contact, so as expected, our red is still reading in the bad. So we're going to hit it, so we can get it to come up. Let it sit for a few seconds. Alright, 3 cycles here. Alright, now then, emission. Okay, that's good emission, but just like with the other guns, we are not achieving cutoff. Alright, let's see where we are. Alright, channel 3. Well, why didn't it go to channel 3? Alright, I've got the color turned down. That looks a lot better, but it's kind of bright, so I'm going to turn the G2 control down a bit. Okay, that looks a lot better, but we still got some problems. I can still see a little weave moving up through the picture.
You need to go to jail. Bring my...
Good. For Detective Tina Neff.
Only in theater. Got it.
Able to locate and arrest Richard George Anderson for the murder of Vicky
And if I
Backo.
turn it off and turn it back on, it comes on like it was doing before, where the high voltage comes up and it goes down, but then if I turn it back on, it's fine, which before, it never would even do that at all. So let's see. See, that's all we were getting before. The high voltage would come up and then just immediately fall back down. Turn it off. Turn it back on, and there it is.
Of course, he's pled guilty to something. that only he confessed to, and that's why the story made so much sense all along.
In Newberry.
But I can tell you, this tube is not going to last long, more than likely. If it does, it'll be the first one I've ever seen. But usually, if you get a month out of one of these after rejuvenating it, you're doing extremely well. And I've got the power supply module removed, and we're going to go over these capacitors. And I'm probably going to remove this dual section filter and just check it out of circuit just to make sure. And I found another dead one, that capacitor right there sandwiched between those two wire wound resistors. So yeah, that one probably got baked. Alright, 10 microfarads, 16 volts, and as you can see, it is dead. Here's another 10 microfarad, 10 volt. It's a little bit high on ESR in comparison to what the other one read. And it's located right here on the front of the board. And here's another 10 microfarad, and it reads almost full deflection, just to give you an idea there. It's 100 microfarad, 25 volt cap is relatively high on ESR. It looks like there's a little crust coming out of it. Okay, I've replaced those other defective capacitors, and I lifted the main dual section filter capacitor, and it checks okay. So we're ready once again to put the board back in the set and see what happens. Yep, this 2.2 at 50 volts is open too. That's one I missed right there by, I think that's a regulator transistor right there on that heat sink, and that capacitor is right there in the middle of it, so it got baked too. And I can tell this is not the original module to the set because I'm seeing newer date codes. One of those capacitors had an 85 date code on it, which is not uncommon because most any Zenith sets you see that uses a 9-160 module, that module would have been exchanged at least once in the lifetime of that set. And back in the day, you could get these rebuilt for about around 50 to 60 bucks. So it was usually just quicker and easier just to have the technician swap it out rather than troubleshoot it to a component level. But number one, this set's not worth putting a rebuilt module in, even if we could get one today. And I remember a TV repair friend of mine told me about a friend of his that had a 19-inch Zenith with this module in it, and he took it to the local Zenith dealer for repair, and they gave him an estimate for a new module, and of course he wasn't going to put that much in a 19-inch set, so he carried it to my friend, and my friend took the time to troubleshoot it, and it was just a shorted diode on the, I think it was one of these diodes up here, this one right here maybe, coming off the flyback. And he told me, he said that was years ago, and I think my friend's still watching that set. Okay, we're back together, so let's run the smoke test. Well, that's better. It started up instantly.
Was the weapon of choice. Nowadays, it seems to be a nonviolent movement, which would diffuse much of these tensions. What does it say that we're on the left, we're on the right, but there does not seem to be that person or persons in the middle saying, let's achieve our differences.
Why is this picture so dark and out of focus?
You know what, we do see
I don't know what all the flashing and tearing is in the picture, and it does it worse when I turn the picture control up.
Twice during her time as an ambassador with Turning Point USA, the conservative organization.
When I turn it all the way down,
from across the country,
it's a lot better.
And he's just so excited to talk to you and anything related to the movement.
Turning Point USA, she traveled.
And I guess I must have hit the focus control during messing with that, because that's the reason the picture was so out of focus.
Wherever you stand.
Well, I don't know what's going on with all this tearing and
he was
crap.
Of it, and you may have been controversial in his response.
But I can already tell you this tube is already slacking off, because whenever I turn the picture control up, you can see it all bleeding out there.
From Turning Point and Kirk. Starting off.
Anytime we have a situation where it was working, and then we put it back together, and then it's not working, I guess before I condemn the tube, I should go back over my work and make sure I didn't put anything in backwards or solder or not solder something well enough, etc., etc. You know, I didn't find nothing on the power supply board, so I'm going to look at this video output board. And I know this resistor network here was very bad about having cold solder joints on it, and some of those connections don't look so hot, so I might hit those, and we'll check that electrolytic cap there. Alright, I'm not looking for any improvement, but let's see. Well, did the high voltage not come up?
For Scottsdale resident Matt Isaacson,
So this thing's still got an issue, apparently.
saving on gas. It also came with perks like riding solo in the HOV lane.
It helps a lot, actually, like picking up my son anytime I'm kind of driving at rush hour.
But come September 30th, many of those perks could be fully into the offing after the Trump administration passed what is called
very, very slow to warm up.
Tax credits on new and used EVs will come to an end.
It's still doing the same thing. When I turn the picture control up, it just blows out and flashes and
would still need full
noise in the audio.
Sit here right now.
And knowing the overall poor condition of this set, I just don't know that I want to. I just don't know that I want to take this any further. All right, let's look at our collector voltage on our video outputs. 65 volts on that one, 47 volts. Just keeps getting lower and lower. That's too low. And I can tell you that boost filter is getting a little warm to the touch, so it may be leaky, and we might have to replace that.
Red.
Alright, changing that cap didn't help matters any.
What's this question mark? Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascists!"
And I'm getting about 153 volts on our collectors of
arrow symbol,
video
right
output transistors. I think before our voltage was low because I wasn't really making very good contact. I was touching these little heat sink things here.
Bella Chow, Chow Chow, and a third unfired casing
and that
read,
voltage may be a little low.
You are gay.
I don't have a schematic to this set, but
we are indebted
I really don't
to
see any
enforcement
need in going any further with this.
Together, local law enforcement
Because we can see when I crank the picture control up, it just blows out there.
Justice. I want to thank the public.
Now, the tearing and flickering,
reviewing videos,
that's a little bit confusing. I've never seen a weak tube cause that, but
thank the family members of Tyler Robinson.
But this tube is not
in this case
in good shape.
Into to law enforcement as
well. When I turn the picture control way down, it looks a lot better, but I still see some tearing going on here.
Erica.
Well, I looked at it again, and as it turns out, I don't have this capacitor soldered in. It's wiggling. So I'm going to fix that, and I'm going to clean up this on this regulator transistor here and see if that makes any difference. Okay, just go out of focus, why don't you? You're just not going to cooperate, are you? That's a little better, but yeah, that pad just flaked off right there on that particular terminal, and obviously this had been replaced before, probably when this board was sent back for rebuilding. So yeah, we're going to have to do we're going to have to put a jumper wire between there and there. Alright, there it is. So one last time, let's button it back up and see what happens. Alright, let's run the smoke test again.
For wounded service members, this is the time the princess visited the country. Ukraine is among the nations bidding to host the Invictive Games in 4 years. The Invictive Games is a Paralympic-like competition for military veterans. The Invictus Games competition was founded by Harry for wounded, injured, and sick service personnel and veterans.
Investigators
no, I can tell you it's still doing it.
helped end this man.
And that's it. I'm not dealing with this thing anymore.
Authorities
authorities identified the suspect as 22-year-old Tyler Robinson. He was taken into custody here in St. George on Friday morning after his photos distributed nationwide. Officials say Robinson at first refused to surrender until his father contacted a youth pastor who also serves as a U.S. Marshals Task Force officer. That call ultimately led the FBI.
Now, if this cabinet was in better shape, and if this tube wasn't on its last leg, I might dive into this more, but I'm not.
To a family friend.
I'm not that interested in trying to figure out what's the matter with this, knowing that knowing what kind of problems it has, and I don't have a SAMS on this, and I'm not too interested in trying to procure one. So we've been taking this one about as far as we're going to go. And it could be the tube causing all of this. I know the tube is probably to blame for all this blowing out whenever I turn the contrast control up.
Prove him wrong. Wherever you stand with Charlie, he was okay with it, and he was accepting of it. And he may have been controversial in his response to you, but regardless, he didn't want to control you.
Mia tells me she learned the proper ways to handle civil discourse from Turning Point and
Okay, it's gutted of everything except for the picture tube. And as I was pulling it apart, the high voltage lead relatively easily came out of this anode cup. So that could account for the tearing that I was seeing in the picture. If that was arcing there a little bit, that could have very easily caused that. But that still doesn't explain the extreme blooming. That was the picture tube. So still, this set wasn't really of much use anyway. So I'm going to put this cabinet up on Facebook Marketplace or somewhere, and if nobody claims it before trash day, it's going out to the curb. So just to recap, we have this Zenith 25-inch System 3, which was a higher-end set in the early 80s that had intermittent or no startup, and I found a bunch of bad electrolytics on the 9-160 power supply and horizontal sweep module. Replacing those seemed to have cured that problem, but then we had a very weak picture tube, and these EFL gun trifocus Zenith picture tubes. Actually, Zenith wasn't the only one that used them. I know Sylvania used them, Magnavox used them. I've seen them in some Sanyo and / Sears sets. They make an outstanding picture when they're hot, but when they get dull, when they get cold, they usually will not take too well to a rejuvenation, and this one appeared to be no exception. So when I came back today, it was very slow to warm up, looked like crap, had bleeding worse than ever, and then we had all that tearing in the picture, which I think was a faulty connection between the high voltage anode lead and the anode cup. I think it was sort of making contact, but it wasn't making very good contact, and it was probably arcing a little bit, and that's what was causing all the tearing. So I feel like the chassis in this set is probably good. I wished I would have discovered that anode connection issue before I had the TV 3/4 ripped apart, but given the fact that we knew the tube was bad anyway, I wasn't going to reassemble everything just to test my theory. So there's the pile of stuff there for future use. Now, I have this cabinet advertised for free. See if anybody wants it for repurposing. If they don't come get it by trash day, then I will put the cabinet and tube out on the street and let the bulky waste truck pick it up. If somebody wants it and comes to get it, then I'll pull the tube out of it and give them the cabinet, and I'll worry about dumping the tube somewhere or disposing of it some way. But, you know, can't save them all. You know, had this set had a hot tube in it and had the cabinet been in a little bit better shape, this would have been a nice TV for somebody, for those who like 80s consoles, but and the cabinet messed up. That's my fault. for letting it sit out here under the carport for as long as I have. Well, I didn't have any room to put it anywhere else, so this is where it got stashed. And this one here is a Zenith Chromacolor 2. That's going to be the next resurrection. Now, it has a hot tube in it. Those Delta Gun Chromacolor 2 tubes rarely ever go bad. I've seen a couple of them that were weak but usable, and I saw one that was dead, but it popped back after I rejuvenated it. Now, to be fair, that one that was dead was an earlier one, and I think that might have been one that got replaced due to the safety capacitor blowing up and cutting the neck off of it. So whatever tube was stuck in there might not have been as good a quality as what was in it originally. But anyway, that's about all I got for this video. I hope you got something out of all of this, and more to come later.